what is going on in the last days and time. Revelation clearly speaks on some of the things that are going on, and people are paying no attention to it. You have to tap in spiritually. You have to look with a spiritual eye and also put the full armor of God on to withstand what is going to happen in the days to come. Miss Celestial, back with another prophetic message. Be sure to like, share, and subscribe. Check this out.
And basically, I'm here to let you know that you should not allow your leg to be caught in a trap. As I was preparing for this thing, setting up my tripod, which was really giving me trouble today, as I was preparing to bring this message, it was on my heart and I was saying it out loud. I was saying, oh God, it would be so unnecessary to spend 7 months recovering from a bullet wound. If a bullet wound gets you in your hip joint, in your knee, here's the reality. You will not die, but you will suffer the kind of injury that bothers people for the rest of their lives. Getting clipped on a bone is not a fatal accident, but you will always feel the pain in that bone. And some of these hack doctors, sometimes operating on your knee is not worth it. So usually they will not disclose to you that the reason they don't want to operate on you is because it doesn't bring enough money. They're simply going to tell you that the bullet is in a weird place, and I think we should just let it stay in place. The same way they tell certain demographics of women that, your fibroid is only 2,000 miles in diameter. I don't think we should operate. Let's just leave it in there, because it's well known that fibroids will multiply, eat up the real estate of your womb, and then if you are of a certain color, that will make sure that you never have children. If you think that I'm giving racist advice, you're welcome, but if you don't, you can go and watch the prophecy that is called the Bull Doctor. People in this country do not want the multiplication of the seed of Israel, and therefore they will tell you that a fibroid that's the size of a grapefruit should be monitored. Your belly will be out to here. It should have been operated on when it was just 2 centimeters across and there were 4 of them. They will wait until there's 15, until they have formed an entire grapeseed nest in you, and they will still be telling you, let's monitor it, because everybody knows that as long as you have fibroids, you're not having any babies. You're welcome. So if you're of the Church of Jesus Christ and you're still going, for instance, to these concerts that God said will be claiming lives, like the way those 75 people just died for nothing in the Dominican Republic. The nightclub roof just collapsed as they were in there drinking and celebrating, and several famous people, I think even an NBA player that was down there on vacation and everything, as well as famous stars and everybody that was in that nightclub, they died. A stage collapsed in Nigeria. The whole thing just fell forward and people were screaming and running away. The most famous witch in America is, I found out through subscribers, once again trying to siphon and vacuum your coins out of you, Madam Beyonce Knowles Carter. That woman has bills to pay, and you guys out there that keep going are her free GoFundMe, because you lack wisdom and you have no understanding in a time where wisdom is more precious than money and understanding is more precious than gold and silver. The prophecy for today is from May the 2nd, 2025, very brief dreams that I had, and the title is called Church Attacks and the Coming of the Nephilim. Church Attacks and the Coming of the Nephilim. And what I saw in this dream, it really gave me pause for thought, because normally I always speak of dreams and I tell you that dreams are basically the free checkup of where you are in life. There's a prophecy on this channel called Dreams Part 1, Dreams Part 2. It's nothing but a collection of multiple prophecies of things that will be happening. And I think the most famous thing that has already come to pass is that the planes would be falling out of the sky, literally dropping out of the sky. Air traffic controller accidents, they make an error and then planes will nearly collide. Planes will have technical errors before they take off, and those are the lucky planes, and we've been seeing tons of those around the world. That's the most famous clip from that prophecy, but there were a lot of things in that prophecy that God was talking about, including natural disasters, including the collision of ships and things like that. But when I do take the time to talk about what dreams are basically a free checkup from the spirit realm, okay, whether it's the negative part of the spiritual realm or the positive part of the spiritual realm. Dreams are a free checkup to show you where you are. So if you are well dressed here in the real world, you have a pretty good job, you are well dressed, well kitted out, you maybe have a fancy car or a decent car, you go to work, but you keep dreaming of yourself in rags. You keep dreaming of yourself in tatters. You keep dreaming of yourself sometimes stark naked. You keep dreaming of yourself sometimes in sexual encounters. You keep dreaming of yourself whereby you're having sex with people willingly. You can see that you're willingly doing it. Or you can see that people are having sex with you against your will. People just sleep with you. Sometimes women, they will dream that men sleep with them in the dreams and populate them with these babies that they absolutely hate. What it's showing you is that on the outside, you appear to be well put together. You appear to be doing very well, but spiritually, you're suffering what is known as spiritual robbery. If anyone can take control of your body, especially sexually, where it's always supposed to be with your consent and also with the right mind, full understanding. If you see someone who has Down syndrome and you see them being, for instance, we hear so many cases of them in homes where they're being cared for, and then these predatory aides, right? AIDS, meaning assistants, staff. They start sleeping with 16 and 14-year-old Down syndrome babies. And then all of a sudden, these young women pop up pregnant with no understanding of what has happened. That is forced predatory sexual behavior. If that is if that is happening to you in your dreams, for instance, you do well in life, but then in your dreams, you find that you have no power. In your dreams, you find that you have no strength. It basically is telling you that your natural life is rubbish. For most people, they navigate by how well they're doing. They navigate by where they live. Oh, I live in this zip code. Oh, I live in this kind of house. Oh, I live in this kind of gated apartment, gated complex. You know, we have one of those booms that you have to raise up with a security guard, and then you drive in. You have to put a code in to get into our subdivision. It doesn't matter about all those things. What does it profit a man if he gain the whole world and then he lose his soul? If you are naked in the spirit, that means that you don't even have the basic functionality of personal rights to keep your clothes on. You don't. It means that you may have everything in life outside, but you are suffering what is known as spiritual robbery. The simplest way to put spiritual robbery is that the demons are basically doing cartwheels through your life. Whee! Cartwheel here, cartwheel there. You dream that you are being forced to eat. You find yourself always eating in dream. That is the operation of spiritual witchcraft. It is very easy to initiate people in their dreams. It means that you are so weak spiritually that you cannot even prevent witches. They will give you food that looks like food, but then that meat, that chicken, that beef that you're eating, it's literal flesh. And because those who manipulate in the spiritual realm know that they cannot bring you a baby's thigh, a baby's hand, or a man's private parts and put it on a plate and say, take, eat. They literally warp or manipulate the appearance of the image of the thing to your sleeping mind. And then you take and eat, and then you take and sip, and you're drinking blood. Next thing you know, you can't stop following that woman. Next thing you know, you can't stop giving your entire salary to that man in the church or that woman in the church, because they've already initiated you, even outside. It doesn't even have to be, somebody that you know. It can be a family member. They do witchcraft on you. Basically, if you find yourself naked, you find yourself sick, you find yourself not having much spiritual strength in your dreams, it's giving you a heads up. It's giving you a very clear understanding of where you stand spiritually. And that means that you don't have any armor in your dreams. If you cannot fight, if you come across an opponent is bum rushing you in the dream and you cannot fight, you just find yourself like, it means that you have no strength. Proverbs says that in the day of adversity, if you have no strength or if you faint, then your strength is small indeed. Meaning that in the good times, nobody has need of strength. Strength is absolutely necessary for the day of attack, for the day of adversity, for the day of hardships, for the day of disaster that even Psalm 91 talks about. The calamity that strikes at noonday. What does that tell you? The calamity that strikes at noonday is directly in Psalm 91. That should tell sleepy, blind Christians who are, oh, God is looking after me. He don't play about me. Listen, you can die young and God can still be God on the throne. You can die before you hit your 20th birthday, and he's going to still be God all day. The person that God doesn't play about, he doesn't play about me. The only person that God doesn't play about is Jesus Christ. Every meal that you put in your mouth, that food is going into your mouth because God doesn't play about Jesus Christ. It's the blood of Jesus that bought you the right to get that food. It's the blood of Jesus that brought you out of that cancer ward. It's not you. A sinner you were, and if not for the blood of Jesus, a sinner you will always be. A sinner I will always be. It is the blood that exempts us from the judgment that follows us all day long because of our sinful nature that we got from our parents, Adam and Eve. If people had better understanding of what the scriptures were saying, they would be so much more humble and they would be so much more wise. A person like myself, called by God, I still know my place. I don't walk around saying stupid things like God doesn't play about me. God doesn't play about Jesus. God looks at me every day through the bloody lens of Jesus Christ's sacrifice. Isaiah 53 is why I'm taken care of. Isaiah 53 is why a bus hasn't hit me in the middle of the city when I go to work. God doesn't play about Jesus. God doesn't play about Golgotha, the place of the skull. God doesn't play about the fact that Jesus cried out at the 3rd hour that he was thirsty, and then he gave up the ghost, and then the veil was torn, and then the sky went black, and then the Roman soldier finally got it together and put 2 and 2 together and stopped getting 22 and got 4 and thought, oh, surely he was the Son of God. That's what God doesn't play about. He doesn't play about the eternal sacrifice that was made to keep felons like us out of hell. It needs to sink into a much deeper layer that nothing in Christianity is about you. You are an incidental beneficiary of a contract that did not involve you. It was a contract between God and his Son and his Spirit on your behalf. You did nothing. You deserve nothing. You ought to know your place and calm down. You really should. It is very important. This is why so many of us are just popping off into eternity, smashing into walls, having accidents, dying at 22 years old. It's ridiculous. The calamity that strikes at noonday is right there in Psalm 91. The bright Christian ought to know that what it's saying is that something bad can happen to you too. It can happen to you too. It can happen to your toddler. It can happen to your mother. It can happen to anybody. Death is an incidental. An incidental means that you wanted to get something and then you find they're like, well, but if you take this, you have to get that. That's what Ruth was. Ruth was an incidental. Ruth was an incidental. What got Ruth married is the fact that Boaz liked her so much that Boaz went and looked up the bylaws. And what he found is that, well, this daughter-in-law attached to Naomi is also attached to some land. That's how Ruth got out of those streets and became a married woman and a mom. Nobody would want a Moabite widow. But because she was the daughter-in-law and she was attached to Israelite Naomi, Naomi was entitled to land. And what Boaz did to get that woman to marry her because he loved her and he wanted to be the one to marry her, even though somebody was ahead of him and had more rights, first pickings, you might say. What he said to the man was, well, Naomi does have a field and Naomi does have this and Naomi does have that. And the man was like, yeah, I'll take it. I'll take it. And he said, but the Moabitess, Ruth, is attached to it. She was an incidental, meaning that she was not the main, not the center, not a major. That's an incidental. Jesus Christ is the main. We are incidentals. The pastors don't tell you this. God loves you. He'll pursue you. He's crazy about you. Stop it. It's been decades of lies and sugar. Stop it. I'm not talking to everybody, but I'm definitely talking to the great deceived mass that has made my life a living hell on this internet. You need to stop it. Cut it out. Your name is not in the Bible anywhere. If your name does appear, it was somebody else's name, somebody else's Bible name before you. The man didn't want the incidental. That's us. He wanted the field, the value, the option, the main thing. That's Jesus. But when he heard that the incidental was tied to it like a little tail wagging on a Great Dane, he declined. He said no. He didn't want the shame of having a foreigner, already used up woman as his wife. And Boaz was like, great, I'll take it. That's what God did. He was focused on Jesus, but he also accepted us, the incidental. I don't know where this is coming from. It might be coming for somebody who has a too healthy self-esteem about themselves in this Christianity. And they're walking wobbly because they think all day, every day that it's about them. It's not about you. We could be having your funeral tomorrow. Your mom could be raising money on Venmo tomorrow. I see enough moms raising money and crying on TikTok. It's insane the way Gen Z is dying. Exactly as I said. It's insane the way people under the age of 27 years old are leaving this life for what makes no sense to me. Except that there's a prophecy over their life. And the prophecy over their life is that because of the things that they're doing, Satan is going to eat them up like bread until they repent and stop. It's as simple as that. They think they can't die. They are dying. Millennials are still here. Gen Z are still here. The older generation, the boomers, are still here. Gen Z, however, Gen X, I mean, is still here. Millennials still here. Boomers still here. Gen Z on their way out because they can't hear, because they lack wisdom, because nobody has taught them life from death. The incidentals need to move out of the way and let the main thing be the main thing. The main thing is Jesus Christ. So, back to dreams. If you're powerless in your dreams, it could be a multiplicity of factors. It could simply mean that it's an indication that the general environment, okay, what is around you, what is actually taking place in the spirit realm is greater than you yourself. You're not actually able to meet up to the force. And so this dream that I had, it really surprised me because in this dream, the power that I had, the strength that I had, the response factor that I had was so low that I was very, 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 very surprised. I was very surprised because in my dream, if you try me, your body parts are going to land up all over in different locations and your mother is going to have to come with a little demon basket to collect them. That is what happens. The ability to fight in dreams comes from how well you fight here in the natural realm, how well you're fasting, how well you're reading your Bible, also to a very large extent, how well the favor of God is with you. And God shows me immense favor beyond what I deserve. I don't know if it's because of the office. I don't know if it's just because he likes my eyebrows. I've never really questioned it deeply. I'm just extremely grateful for the favor and the keeping power of God. That's why I don't walk around saying stupid things like he doesn't play about me. I know it's all grace. I know it's all grace. I know it's all because Jesus hung by his palms for hours and hours and hours, a grown man hanging by his own body weight, tearing his hand for somebody like me. That is why I don't say stupid comments out of my mouth that have an arrogant application to them, because I know that the grace that bought and saved me was not free. He bled and he sweated for it. And the least I can do is be respectful and show that I have a brain that understands what it is to die by crucifixion. So in my dreams, it is usually that I can speak to things and they shift. It is usually that if you come for combat, it won't go well for you, the opponent. By the function of grace, by the function of favor, by the function of his protection, even in the spirit realm, by the function of also other things that we must do. If you can pray in tongues, you need to pray in tongues. You literally need to stop following the growing community of American buffoons. This is usually an American sickness telling you that praying in tongues is not for today. Who prays in tongues edifies himself. Do you know what an edifice is? An edifice is a big, robust building. The scripture is literally telling you who prays in tongues makes himself into a big old towering house. Who wouldn't want to be that in the spirit realm? Who? You've got the whole of 1 Corinthians 14 telling you what praying in tongues does, telling you that yes, in the congregation, we're not really going to go into that unless the Holy Spirit has placed there an understanding or the gift of interpretation in tongues, so that if anyone should bring out an unknown tongue, it won't just go into the air, because it could be a leprechaun curse, it could be a wizard's curse, it could be anything. There are many different types of tongues. If you hear that the Bible says, if I speak with the tongues of men or the tongues of angels, don't you know that they're fallen angels and that they could utter curses and bring the entire church under some kind of rapturing spell? It's possible. So unless the Holy Spirit places as a counterfoil, as a balancing factor, that when the tongue comes forth, someone stands up truly moved of the Spirit, not a random weirdo who just knows, oh, there's supposed to be an interpretation, I guess I'm up. A true interpreter of the tongue, then yes. And because most people are so wishy-washy about the gift of tongues in the first place, it's very, very rare that you will find a genuine tongue just coming up in a congregation. But that personal gift of speaking in tongues is something that we ought all to covet more than gold. We ought all to desire it. We ought all to pursue it. We ought to give God no rest, asking him to please bless us with the gift of tongues, because who prays in tongues edifies himself. It is a secret unknown language. It is the original enigma code that Satan cannot crack. Satan cannot get into tongues. It's a lockbox. It's a safe. It's a safety security box that is more secure than anything that they have in Switzerland. He cannot get into those prayers. It is the prayer of the Spirit coming out under the impetus of faith, going directly to God. Praying in tongues, you could be talking to God about anything. And sometimes God will give you the understanding with your natural mind. When I'm praying in tongues, I can hear what I'm saying. I understand it. It's actually such a blessing. It's actually so pleasing to speak in tongues. They come out sometimes like different languages, the flow of them. Sometimes it's like Arabic. Sometimes it's like German. Sometimes it's like French. Sometimes it's like something I've never heard before. It comes out sometimes sounding like known languages, and it comes out sometimes sounding like anything else. But then sometimes I can hear what I'm talking about, and I'm always so pleased to be allowed to hear what Spirit is saying to Spirit. Praying in tongues is important. Praying in tongues is necessary. Praying in tongues edifies you and makes you strong. So that's one of the ways that you actually end up popping into your dreams a lot stronger. That's one of the ways that you end up praying for your brother who's about to get shot, going to the wrong party, hanging out with the wrong friends. He's all the way across the country at a college campus. You don't know what's going to happen tomorrow, and you simply begin to feel heat bubble up out of you, and you give voice to it for 30 minutes, travailing in prayer, and then all of a sudden the burden is released. And then that little knucklehead is going to fall asleep, and he's going to miss the party time, and he's going to not go, or he's going to go, but at the first sign of trouble, he's actually going to call an Uber and get out of there. And then later he will hear of the shooting and tell you, and then that is how you will know God intervened. So that is the way of it. But when you find that you are weak in the spirit, and when you find that people come to you for combat, people come to you for deception, they veil their faces in the dream, they come looking at you, they come looking to you, wearing the face of your relative, wearing the face of your best friend. It's not them. It's actually demonic workers, witches. It's very easy for them to camouflage themselves. It's very easy for them to show up looking like what they're not. And then you don't have the eagle eyes of the Spirit to know this is not who it is. The feel of the look of them is definitely of so-and-so, but the feel of them is off. It's wrong. It's different. And so this dream that God was giving me, God was showing me basically that we are coming into times where, I'm telling you now, the stuff you used to do, right? You wake up, you know you have to be at work at 8:30, then you're basically waking up at 7:30 for a quick shower and shimmy, and then you jump into the train, and then you start putting in, and Joseph said, and you think that listening to audiobook Bible is how you're going to interface with God. You think that's going to replace prayer. Don't play games. As I said, the graveyards haven't finished eating all they need to eat. There's enough GoFundMe and Venmo that your mom can also participate. Don't play games. The complacency of previous years, I already prophesied since 2023. It's done. It is already done. So even if you are a beginner in Christ, you don't know where to start. The place to start is to get a Bible and start reading it. It's always safer in than out. Safer in the house of God. Safer in the community of God than out. And so here is the dream. I dreamt that I was invited to an event at an old church that I used to go to, a church that I went to when I was quite young, right at the beginning. And even though the church didn't really look like what I know it looks like, in my heart, I knew that it was that first church. I went there now as an adult, and I saw old faces and I saw many new ones as I was coming down the entry hall to come into the main church. That's how I knew that it wasn't exactly the church, because that church didn't have an entry hall. It basically had doors at both sides, and when you entered in, you were immediately in the sanctuary. And so as I'm walking down this, let's just say an added hall that has been put into the dream just to give me time to walk into the main sanctuary, I realized something about myself that is actually quite true of me in real life. I'm walking in the dream, and I'm realizing in my heart as I'm about to enter into this event that I don't particularly like events being held in the church. Now, as I wrote here in the dream, I know that churches own their property and that they always hold their own events in there because, of course, it's cheaper. It doesn't matter. It doesn't make sense if you are a church that owns your own property, you own your own building, you're not renting. It doesn't make sense to go and rent a separate hall if you want to, for instance, have a youth dinner, if you want to have a dinner to honor the elderly, or, couples that have been married for 15 years and above. You want to celebrate marriage in that way. It doesn't make sense, to rent an outside hall if you own the hall. Nevertheless, you see, because you can cut costs by staying at home, meaning at home at the home church. It's a good way to keep the eye on the sheep. It's a good way to foster togetherness. And it's also a great way to have a ready cleanup crew when the event is over. You don't have to hire outside crew because church women, church family, are always willing to lend a hand and clean the sanctuary up and make it perfect. Despite all that, it all makes sense. I have never liked it. And that is just me, because I always have felt that if we were back in the old temple, we would not dare have anything in there, because Zacharias and none of them did have anything in there. They simply went in there to conduct religious business, faith business, going behind the veil, the actual sanctuary, where the Ark of the Covenant was, which for us would be the actual hall we sit in with the pulpit there. That's the place where we worship and we pray and we really seek the face of the Father. And so it is just me, but I don't like it. And so as a result, as I went into this event, I was kind of low-key annoyed, but it was still a very good event. And I did have a good time. It was good to see people. And then at the end of the event, we said our goodbyes, and the space was very quickly cleaned up, as it always is. And the few of the women began to go off to shut off main things like, pull down levers to actually bring steel coverings over the windows and things like that. And that's when I personally realized, I do need the bathroom before I need the trip home. And I asked, is the bathroom still in the same place? And the lady said, no, come on, I'll take you. And so she takes me and we go to this bathroom, and I step in there to do my business. And when I'm finished, I see the little... the little thing. It was a strange thing that I've never seen before. Normally you use the bathroom and there's either a little metal stick on the wall, and then they put the toilet tissue on it, and then you can simply pull it like that. Or sometimes they have fancier ones where it's an alcove and then you have to slot the tissue in there. But either way, it's always accessible. But what I saw was some kind of new contraption. It was completely steel and completely sealed off. And then there was only a small slot about the size of slightly bigger than a credit card. Okay. And then a little bit of tissue was hanging out of it, and the tissue was behind in obviously some kind of steel container that had to be opened with a key or something, and new rolls put in there, and then it would be sealed, and then they would feed it out. So when I saw it, I thought that's an odd way to keep the tissue, but no matter. And I tried to pull on it and it wouldn't come out. It literally just made a sound like prrr, prrr, like something that wants to feed out but is stuck. It wouldn't come out. And I thought, this is very odd. And then all of a sudden, the woman who had brought me, she was outside. She just popped her head and then she was like, oh, I'm so sorry. You have to feed it $1. It sounds very simple. It is, at the end of the day, a public bathroom. And I guess in public bathrooms, you might have to pay for feminine products. You put money in. But there was something in me, even though I was sleeping, that became completely shattered. Because if we're at the point when I have to pay for toilet paper, I don't think I want to come anymore. The disappointment that flooded me was so massive. It was so, I felt it so big. And I literally just hung my head, and the lady had already popped out. And I thought, well, if this is where we've come to, then this is where we've come to. So I just took some coins out of my purse and I fed it in until it hit $1. And then the toilet paper came out. And then later I came out, and it was my job to go and lock a particular door. Everybody else was basically at their station, and I was told, please go and lock that door. And it turned out to be a very important main door facing out into a back area that didn't seem to be very well developed or seedy. I didn't really see it facing into the back of respectable houses or anything like that. And for some reason, I was having a lot of trouble locking this door. I was struggling to lock this door. It was just simply a key slotted in and turn, but I could not get the key to go in the lock. I kept missing it. Missing it. And I just couldn't seem to get it to go into the lock. And then I noticed a very dirty man standing there, very dirty man, unkempt. He had these matted dreadlocks and everything. He was standing at the door, and this man was just looking at me. And for some reason, this man looking at me really threw me off. It made me so nervous. And of course, I became even worse at putting the key in the door. I just couldn't seem to get it into the slot. And when this man perceived that I was having trouble putting the key into the slot, this predatory look came on his face. I've never seen a person's eyeballs sharpen the way the ears of a cat or a wolf would sharpen when they hear a sound that might be dinner. The man's literal eyeballs seemed to light up with so much interest, and he leaned closer towards this screen door that was all that was between me and him. And the screen door itself had no lock on it, no latch. And when I saw that change in him, I got even more discomfited, and I was so terrible at putting the key in the lock that eventually the man was basically standing upon the screen door, looking with all his interest down towards my hands. Fumble until, of course, you know exactly what you think is happening. That man pounced upon that door with leopard speed, and I, perceiving that he was going to do that, utterly abandoned door locking key, and I fled from my station, and I began to scream, run. And the women who were remaining, and there were quite a few women who were still remaining, not only those who were taking care of stations, but quite a few women who just liked the vibe, liked the ambiance. It was a woman's thing. Quite a few women were still remaining, and so I ran screaming, run. And that man literally began to move in the same zigzag fashion that you see lions in the wild when they burst upon a herd of deer, and they move like this and like that, knowing that their presence will scatter the deer. But what they're really doing is they're simply watching the run patterns to see who's going to be easiest, who's going to be the first one that I can bring down, who's going to cost me the least work. I've never seen a human being run like that, and that's because, as you will already understand, that man was not a real man. That was a spiritual representative of the devil, the wolf that will come in among the sheep, Satan himself. That was how he was appearing in that dream. He began to move, zig and zag. Simply, the women were scattering everywhere and running back down that main hall that I spoke of, and I just kept shrieking like a kind of alarm, run. And he was pouncing, moving until he got close to this one girl, and he stabbed her. And it's somebody who in real life is very, very, very close to me. He got close to this one person and he stabbed her in the back, and she fell. And I still did not stop running unless I was going to be the second casualty. I was right at the front, running, screaming, and also crying out to God, help us, help me, help us, we need your help. And as soon as I got to the front of the church, a massive fire station appeared. Massive fire station. It was half a fire station and half a police station. Those of you, you're not used to dreams. You are going through difficulties in your dreams, and then a police officer suddenly appears and says, how can I help you? That's an angel. They don't come in dreams looking like positive Mahalalel and friends. Whenever I'm in need in my dreams, it's always a cop. It is forever a cop who shows up fully kitted in gear. How can I help you, Miss Celestial? What are you standing in need of? From the time I was young, and then I just thought, oh, there's a lot of police in my dream. Then I grew up, and that I know that's cops. Sometimes I see these cops, they set me exams. They set me exams, and then they sit there and wait for me to write the exams, and they're especially watching to see if I will cheat. They set me police exams. Those are the exams I get in my dreams. I don't get ordinary exams. I get cop exams. And they're watching to see, will she cheat? Can she do the test? Can she write the exam? And things like that. A massive fire station. It was literally like, it looked like those, you know, the trailers that you see at the back of the long haul trucks, long distance trucks, those big trailers that people turn into homes. The thing literally appeared and attached itself to the church. So here's the front of the church. It literally appeared right in front of the church and attached itself to the church by a kind of suction mechanism, so that I literally ran out of the hall directly into that fire station and police station. And I just screamed, help us, please. We need help. And with no hesitation, firemen and cops flooded into the church. They flooded into the tunnel and began to pick up the women. And I did see, even though I was speaking to the fire chief, I could see spiritually what was happening behind me. And I did see that one of the firemen went and scooped up the girl who had been stabbed. And as he picked her up, I had the understanding she's not going to die. She's actually going to be okay. She's been reached in time, but she did suffer an attack. It did touch her. And yes, she is Christian. So don't let that's where all that thing that came out of me in the beginning of the video, don't be fooled. Don't be one of those liars in the church who thinks that harm can't come to you, cancer can't come to you, bereavement can't come to you, that your husband can't die, that your daughter is too special to get leukemia. There's nothing like that. The Bible says that time and chance, or in some translation, it says time and circumstance happen to them all. Life can touch you. Unemployment can touch you. Deportation can touch you. A bullet can touch you. Anything can touch you because you live down here. This is why I always stare at the rapture crowd, and I know they're in need of therapy. They're delulu, as the children say, to be living at their big age and thinking that financial crash and the crash of currencies and the capture of this nation and the defeat of this nation by Russia and China can't happen because they have to be raptured before all that happens. It's a whole lie. The biggest one that rules this nation. But we will all learn sobriety in our time. So anyway, the fire station literally manifested, connected itself to the church. And as soon as I stepped in there crying, help, these men, buff men, I mean, they just like this, they just spread around me and just flooded into the hall and started grabbing the women, protecting the women. And then I didn't see that dirty man anymore. I didn't see him. He wasn't there. And I was so relieved. I started crying, but even in that dream, I was saying to God, what kind of attack is this? What kind of attack is this, God, where even as I'm trying to guard against it, as I can see what my station is and how I'm supposed to protect and how I'm supposed to stop, I'm so weak, I'm so powerless, I'm so clumsy, I'm not doing it right. And this man is interested. He's so interested. God, what kind of dream is this? And how can I be so slow and useless until the attack actually manifests, even though I'm truly trying to stop it? I'm trying to tell you right now by the Spirit of God that they're going to come prevailing attacks against the Church of Jesus Christ. When I say prevailing attacks, that person who is planning to mess up your escrow account and really destroy your credit, or mess up the escrow account and really stab you financially in the divorce, is going to be successful in doing it. They're going to do it. They're going to be able to get away in doing it because we're in a prevailing season. We're in a season where evil has been to the gym and worked out, and Christians have not. And I've been telling you this for years, and you can go all the way back to 2022, and the prophecy that has come immediately to my mind is the warning that I gave you either in 2022 or 2021, and it's called "The Devil is Outworking the Saints." Yeah, you didn't know that Satan was in the gym when I told you that God said that we are lazy, that we're complacent, that we make far too many assumptions about what we think he's going to do for us. Well, Satan got creatine and protein bars, and he's back. The devil is outworking the saints. Prevailing attacks are going to come against the Church of Jesus Christ, and it is going to involve, in some cases, physical harm, but the help of the Lord. The Lord is an ever-present help. He is a strong tower. We run into him and we are saved. That is why at the cry, the genuine cry, God help us. Why? Because of the prevailing attack. Because the strength was not enough unto saving the day. Because the ordinary things that Christians do that they just think, I'll just do that, I'll just do my 10 minutes in the morning and I'll just be like, oh Lord, I love you. Those Bethel church sighs, right? We just love you right now, God. Can you feel him? You better stop that nonsense, because somebody's going to get stabbed at the family picnic. Because some uncle that just got out of prison is going to come and get triggered by something, and he's going to go right back to his switchblade because he's been gone for 15 years and that's all he knows. You better stop those sighs and functionally go on the internet and start to look for prayer points for protection. Prayer points, prevailing prayer points against dream pollution. Write that down. Fire prayer points against dream pollution, so they can stop stealing all your money in the dream, so people can stop sleeping with you in the dream, so you can stop eating all the lasagna on earth in the dream. We have an enemy. Most of us are very unskilled in front of that enemy. Most of all have no idea where the starting points are. And it's very rare for me to do a video like this, because God didn't send me to teach and God didn't send me to give pointers. He sent me to prophesy the destruction of the United States of America, and to make sure that all nations know that they're going to get a spoonful of the medicine right before, during, and after she goes down. That is the reason that I was born. Everything else is incidental. So, church attacks are coming. The churches are going to start. Let me do it from the bottom, and then I'll do the part from the top. God says, look for church and school shootings and other types of attacks, such as knife attacks, and also attacks with strange weapons to start occurring at daycares, at schools, at colleges, and at other events, especially where children or minors are involved. Parks will be a major place for shootings, but Yah says that the sanctuary and even the larger grounds of the churches are also going to be the scene of horrific attacks from individuals who are not well. We're talking about unstable people. We're talking about people who are suffering from unhinged fantasies of hurting church people. We're talking about people who are unwell in their minds, delusions of grandeur, people who perhaps have really built up anger over the years because of church abuses, legit church abuses that happened to them and were never addressed, but also people who are struggling with their mental health. Yah says that we're going to see in the churchyards and in the sanctuary itself, meaning inside the church. An incident like this occurred 2 times, I think, in 2024. One, there's a very famous bishop, I think, who's maybe is in the orthodoxy, and the man, I think, stabbed him many times and cost that bishop his eye. That is a perfect example of the fact that you can love God, follow God, and have a sincere heart for God, and the devil will still get your ear. You're just a sheep after all, out here walking around talking about he don't play about me. You're just a sheep after all. Fresh meat that Satan can smell from across the divide. He got that bishop's eye. That man wears a patch to this day. Another one happened in the black church where the man walked up point blank up to the pulpit. And I think he fired several times, but his aim was bad, unless that pastor would have been a goner. It does happen. So the church yards, the grounds, This could be the church school. This could be the church daycare. This could be the center for unwed mothers. This could be the YMCA that churches built. Yah says it's going to be a place, a major place for shooting from unwell individual, but he says also from people who will make deliberate plans to enter into church spaces and cause harm and kill people, and people who will be deliberately plotting to attack the people of God. So entering into the church areas by deliberate plans is one thing, but then Yah is also saying that there will be plots to attack the people of God. So the designated crazy, unhappy person at the office, they always somehow know the Bible study student, and that will be, unfortunately, the person that they stabbed 3 times in the neck at the water cooler. It's the church woman that he will wait in the parking lot to attack and rape. Inside the sanctuary, inside the church grounds, but also deliberate plots by the wicked. And this is not a random wicked, oh, Illuminati wicked. No, this is just your average person. Christians forget that we have light coming out of us, especially the genuine ones. We have light coming out of us, and the devil hates the light. Satan has hated the light from the beginning. But God has never fooled us about how Satan sees the light. Not only does he hate the light, because the light, as it says in Ephesians chapter 5, and I think verse 12, what is light is what exposes. So as people would attack me here and tell me, close your mouth and you're lying, I sit here, God's living light, and I shine the light on all the filth in America. And then later we see it manifesting. We see it actually proven. We see it on TV, and then we're quiet collectively. You're telling the light not to shine, but God sent me to shine light, to be his light, to reveal what is in darkness, because what is light exposes. That's one area. But then because we carry the living Spirit of God, the living Christ within us, we shine. And John chapter 1 tells us that the light shines in darkness and the darkness doesn't understand it. A lot of people, when they see what they don't understand, their next step is to hate and damage it. If you see what you don't understand, you will always abuse it. You will always misuse it simply because you don't know what it's for. And so as the light of believers shine in the darkness that is rising up in this world, the darkness that is determined to have its 15 minutes of fame. Why? Because it is guaranteed its short season in the Bible. Satan is going to be the overpowering force for a little while. Satan knows it. He intends to have it no matter how many people are praying, because he's guaranteed it by God himself. And so as he sees God's light in God's people, he doesn't comprehend it. He doesn't know what all this light is for. Why is it exposing? Why is it speaking? Why is it praying? Why is it intervening? Why is it slowing down my plan to kill its sister? Why? So he's going to attack. He's going to attack. He's going to watch with interest to see, she's not praying as she should. He doesn't read his word like he should. Through no fault of his own, he's confused about what he reads. All of those are weaknesses that the devil can exploit. A lot of you sit at home because you think that you're Mary, Magdalene, Jesus, and I don't know, Apostle Peter rolled in together. You don't want to go to church for anybody to teach you. You want to be watching these mindless YouTube videos that are confusing you about simple things in the book of Genesis. You want to be believing every theory that comes out of the little python snake basket. Ball of confusion in your head. Then you will tell me there's no churches. There are no churches, but you can work at the Waffle House. I'm not hating on anybody who works at the Waffle House, but you have to be of a certain strength to work at a Waffle House in America, because the Waffle House is known to be ghetto. So you can work there and you can call that a job. But then when it comes to church, you want to be so discerning. So discerning. They might do this to me. They might do that to me. And so you opt to stay at home. And all you know when you stay at home is what you know. Some of us have been in church since. Doors are open. We're in there. Pencil and paper, writing. It's a lifetime of pencil and paper. Till now, I don't need one. Brain is on. Lights are on. So, God is showing us here that attacks are going to come, and attacks are going to make it inside the sanctuary, because the doors of the sanctuary are not locked. Notice that the people tasked with locking up the sanctuary was not the pastors themselves. It was the members tasked with the keeping safe of the house. A lot of pastors don't actually travail for the safety of their churches like they should. They're waiting for Deaconess Pemberton, right? And sister whoever, the weeping women, the wailing women, to intercede for the ministry. And they take it as a matter of fact. They take it as a given that the women will come together and keep the sanctuary safe. And that's because traditionally, historically, women just love the house of God. Women are softer. They just love the home of their Jesus. They care for it. They come, they clean it. They look after it. They watch the little ones. They love it. So that is what's going to happen. Church and school shootings will be taking place. But other types of attacks, knife attacks, other strange weapons God is talking about. People are going to be strange weapons like samurai swords and things like that. People are going to be coming to school and trying to chop these little babies with and things like that, as well as attacking Christians outside in secular life. But Yah says that prayer is very necessary at this time to avert these attacks and to minimize them so that, one, they are not as widespread as they're going to be. This prophecy that I'm given, this dream that I'm sharing, is worldwide. You must please understand it's going to be happening all over the world. Attacks, throwing gasoline grenades into churches and things like that, like they do in northern Nigeria all the time. Blowing up transport, like things that are supposed to maybe take Christians on a field trip, and then they put a pipe bomb in the tailpipe of the bus. That kind of thing is going to be happening all over the world. And the reason for that, it may seem like senseless attacks, but the reason for that is very simple. Satan has many people who are open to him. Many people, their hearts are very easy to fill with offense, to fill with anger until they start thinking, I'm going to kill her. I'm going to kill her. It's not the orthodox type of, oh, this is a dark lord. Oh, this is someone working witchcraft. That's not the only class of people who can be dangerous to Christians. Your family member in the house can be dangerous to you. Your family member in the house can be the reason that you may lose your life. Because I've always said that as darkness increases in the world, God is going to bring about this unavoidable separation between the light and the dark. Light and dark will no longer be able to stay blended, will no longer able to stay pretending. And that literally means that even the fake Christians are going to be separated out of our midst, because the heat of true faith is going to drive them all away. And cockroaches should depart, honestly, because roaches have a smell, as everybody knows. Cockroaches in the faith really need to depart, and they will not be able to hold their form. The same way that the creatures in the Nephilim will not be able to hold their form as the darkness increases in this world, and people are already starting to spot more and more off-looking so-called humans. It's the same way false Christians are no longer going to be able to stay in the congregation of the righteous, because the sheer heat coming off of us like Care Bear stare. They're not going to be able to take it. They're going to vaporize from the scene. They're going to go out and you're going to hear them saying that there's not acceptance for their dresses that are slit down to their navel because they think church is Megan Thee Stallion time. They're going to say there's no love in the church. They're going to say that they're constantly misunderstood. They're going to go and join the podcast bros, and we bid you adieu. Seriously. Light and dark are going to completely separate. And in the same way, saved and completely unsaved are going to separate. And the completely unsaved, they're going to become like gloves for their father, the devil. And then they're going to be used by the devil to cause great harm, to cause a lot of harm. So please let that be in your minds and with understanding. Just a moment, please. And so God says that prayer is necessary to avert these types of attacks. Number one, so that they can't be as widespread, meaning that there should not be as many of them. Two, that they should not be so terrible. This is where I'm talking about the difference between a bullet that will clip you on a bone. And yes, you may be struggling with that bone every time the weather's cold or wet. You feel it achy, but it is very different from being clipped by a bullet in your eye, in your forehead, in your mouth, or in your neck, in one of your main arteries, and completely bleeding out before help can get to you. There's a very vast difference between living with an injury and dying because of an accurately placed bullet. And that is what God is saying here. Let them not be so widespread. Let them not be happening all over like that, but also let them not be so terrible. Meaning prayer can cause a lot of lucky escapes. And you know, Christians, they're always willing to testify. It's better to be giving God glory with your war wounds than having your family gather at a funeral and running a GoFundMe. These are facts. So God says prayer is necessary to avert attacks so that they're not as widespread, so that they're not as terrible, and so more people can escape with their lives. This is what he said. He said, even if they are injured, let them be spared dying. And this is what the dream was showing. So there's going to be church shooting, school shootings, attacks on minors. Yah says to pray on all these three things so that his intervention can be present and can make a difference in safety and whether or not life is lost. The second aspect that this dream is showing is that churches are going to start asking for your money like never before. Now, they've always done this. Nobody can beg quite like the church. But they're going to start asking for money for various projects and events and things that you're literally going to sit and say, is this really what we came here for this morning? They're going to come up with so many ancillary projects. They're going to come up with so many new brand ideas, brand new ideas. We're parking the cars outside and we've got members that are disabled. Just 3 people, just 3. We've got members that are disabled. And so we're going to be starting this new wheelchair fundraiser. We want to offer kind of like an elite shuttle service whereby you're going to bring your grandma to the church and then we're going to have that wheelchair waiting for her in the parking lot and we're going to wheel her in like a celebrity and it's going to be awesome. It's going to be great, you guys, and we just need $40 million to do it. But God said that there's 14 people in this room. Lock the doors. Lock the doors. Ushers, shut the doors. There's 14 people in this room who can each get us started with $1,000. I'll get us started with $1,000. Of course you'll get us started with $1,000, Pastor. You have all the money. These people were asking for us to pay toilet tissue. For the toilet tissue to come out. I've never seen a toilet tissue dispenser in my life. I've seen a hand towel dispenser, and you know what? All you have to do is wave your hand in front of the little infrared dot and the hand towel comes out. I've never seen pay for tissue. It might be out there in Vegas, but I've never seen it in a church. They are going to start asking for money for any and everything. The greed, the filthy lucre is going to come to the forefront. And I can tell you, in places like the Potter's House, it is not going to be a struggle. It is highly unlikely that they will even notice because they have been begged out of their life savings and they have loved it. They've just loved it. So they're going to start renting themselves out, God is also saying, to secular institutions to make money. Churches are going to start renting out the sanctuary. They already do it, but God says they're going to start doing it more and more. And the difficulty, the reason that he's mentioning it is because he says that for the love of money, even if they had a vetting policy, he said they're going to stop the vetting policy because they will say it's keeping us from getting more bookings. The money coming in, we can do so much with it, church. I mean, why should we be exclusionist? They're going to sell it hard. But God says that they will drop the strict vetting policy of seeing who's renting the sanctuary. They're going to drop the need to even look into what the group stands for. Watch Satanists start to be able to rent out churches. And then the church will justify to the members and say, we don't judge. As they're in the sanctuary, bless God, the cloud of glory that falls on us might fall on them. Chuckle. They will say anything because money is money. So God says they're not going to have a strict vetting policy to see who it is that's renting the sanctuary, to investigate into what the renter of the sanctuary even stands for, what do they believe, or even what they're going to be doing at the event. What exactly do you want to do at this event? Instead of the churches giving these longer form contracts that they give that just say we're a church and we stand for this and stand for that, and you might just have to respect a few of our policies. They're just going to hand over one sheet of paper that says amount given, amount to be paid, deposit, sign here. No questions asked, in other words. And what do you think that is going to do when you start to entertain other spirits in the sanctuary? God says they're not going to do any of that. Yah was telling me salt and sweet should not mix. But mixing has happened and will continue to happen as long as the church prioritizes money. And that is the first part of the dream called Church Attacks that I received on May the 2nd, 2025. I now continue to the second part of the dream. It was very short.
Nowadays, more than ever before, people are walking around so blinded to what's going on in the world. It's like people don't even pay attention to the spiritual aspect of things. They just live so fleshly. So no wonder Satan was able to penetrate as much as he has today, especially in the churches. Especially in the churches. All my saints, you have to know that you got to put the full armor of God on and really guard yourself from what's going on in the world today. But hey, everyone has their own thought and opinion. Make sure you drop down in the comment section. Let me know how you feel about this video. See y'all next time.